Imagine, imagine, if you will, that you are standing right in the very center of the old world.
Okay.
It is the dead of winter. It's pre-dawn, so it's that, that specific time of night where the darkness just feels heavy.
Yeah, almost tangible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Almost tangible. And you are standing on a bridge built of blackened sandstone that has somehow survived floods and wars for 600 years.
It's a very specific vibe.
The air is so cold it actually burns your lungs when you inhale. You're tasting frost and river water.
You were painting quite the picture right out of the gate here.
I am trying to take us there.
Yeah.
Because, well, the place matters so much for this. You're surrounded by statues of saints, 30 of them, lining the bridge.
This is looming out of the freezing mist.
Like silent judges.
Right.
And the only light comes from the amber glow of these gas lamps flickering in the snow. You are in Prague.
The city of 100 spires.
Yes. A place that has just always been the capital of magic, of alchemy, of hidden secrets. And it is the exact setting for the source material we are cracking open today.
It really is the perfect backdrop. I mean, honestly, I don't think this story could happen anywhere else.
Yeah.
Today, we are conducting a deep dive into the opening act of Dan Brown's The Secret of Secrets. We're going to be analyzing everything from the prologue all the way through chapter 22.
And let me tell you, when we say deep dive, we really mean it today. This isn't just a basic summary of a thriller.
Right.
We aren't just talking about, a simple murder mystery here. We are talking about a total collision of worlds.
Yeah, the core conflict isn't just good guy versus bad guy. It is ancient mysticism versus noetic science.
It's just such a wild concept.
It is. It's about the friction between the things we used to believe, magic, spirits, alchemy, all the stuff of folklore, and the cutting-edge science that is starting to suggest those things might actually be real.
Exactly. So our mission today is to completely unpack that collision. We're going to unravel a global conspiracy that seems to be absolutely terrified of a book.
Single book.
Right. We're going to analyze historical symbols that you listening right now have probably seen 1,000 times, but never really looked at.
We're going to talk about clay monsters.
Yes, clay monsters. And we're going to try to answer the massive question, is your brain actually in charge of your consciousness? Or is it just a receiver for something else entirely?
That is the big one. That's the question that drives the entire narrative forward.
It really is. But before we get into the heavy philosophy, let's just orient ourselves. We have a cast of characters that feels very classic Dan Brown, but with some definitely darker twists.
Yeah, darker for sure.
We have Robert Langdon, obviously, the Harvard symbologist.
Right.
He's the guy who wears Harris tweed and a turtleneck and somehow always finds himself in life-threatening situations while looking at art.
He is our anchor here. He really represents the historical perspective in all this.
And then we have Katherine Solomon. Now, if you're familiar with the lost symbol, you might remember her brother, Peter Solomon. But Katherine is the intellectual powerhouse of this story. She is a noetic scientist, which is a field we are going to have to define very carefully in just a minute.
Definitely. And then we have our villain, a terrifying figure known simply as the Golem.
A massive man in a clay mask.
Yeah, who seems to have walked right out of a literal nightmare.
And rounding it out, we have Captain Janacek, a chain-smoking Czech intelligence officer who is absolutely 100% done with everyone's nonsense.
I really enjoy Janacek. He serves a very specific and necessary function in the story.
He does.
He is the voice of skepticism. He is the materialist in a world that is rapidly going crazy with mysticism.
He's the guy essentially saying, I don't care about your psychic visions, I just care about the permit for that firearm.
Exactly.
So let's jump right in. The story kicks off with a bang, or actually rather a lecture.
But it is not a boring academic talk.
No. Katherine Solomon is speaking at Prague Castle, specifically in Vladislav Hall.
And just the setting of the lecture is deeply symbolic. Vladislav Hall is this massive, late Gothic ceremonial space.
It's gorgeous.
It has this complex, vaulted stone ceiling that looks like intertwined ribs. I mean, it's where medieval knights used to joust indoors.
Indoors, which is crazy.
Right. It is a space entirely designed for ancient power. And here stands Katherine Solomon, a modern scientist, preparing to tell a packed audience that everything they know about their own minds is completely wrong.
She starts by addressing the elephant in the room, or as she calls it, the C word.
I loved this opening. She really gets the audience nervous.
You can feel the tension.
You really can. They think she's going to say something profane or maybe something highly political. But the C word she's referring to is consciousness.
Now, hold on. Let's pause there. Why is consciousness a dirty word in science? I mean, we all have it.
Sure.
I am conscious right now, I hope.
Yeah.
You're conscious. It is the defining feature of human existence.
Mm-hmm.
Why would scientists be afraid to even talk about it?
Well, it's not that it's dirty, it's that it's messy. It just doesn't fit the established rules.
How so?
For the last 300 years, pretty much since the Enlightenment, science has been completely dominated by materialism.
Okay, define that for us, just so we're all on the same page.
Materialism is the strict belief that only physical matter is real. If you can't weigh it, measure it, or poke it with a stick, it does not exist.
Right.
In this worldview, the universe is just a machine.
Like a giant clock.
Exactly like a clock. And in that model, a human being is just a biological machine. You are made of atoms. Your brain is essentially a machine made of meat.
A machine made of meat. That is a lovely image to have over breakfast.
It's crude, but it's totally true to the theory. The standard scientific dogma is that your neurons fire, chemicals release across synapses, and that purely biological process creates the feeling of being you.
So consciousness is just a byproduct of the brain.
Right. It's the steam coming off the engine. It's trapped completely inside your skull.
Which means when the brain dies, the machine stops and the steam just dissipates. Consciousness ends.
Correct. That is the safe, accepted, materialist view. But Katherine Solomon stands up in that ancient hall in Prague and says, no, you're all wrong.
She called it a paradigm shift.
She compares the current model of the brain to the flat earth theory, or the geocentric model where everyone thought the sun revolved around the earth.
Because it looks that way from where we stand.
Exactly. If you just look up, the sun seems to move across the sky. But it's an illusion. Katherine argues that the idea that the brain creates consciousness is the exact same kind of illusion. We are looking at it completely backward.
So if the brain doesn't create consciousness, what is it actually doing?
She proposes that the brain is not a creator at all. It is a receiver.
Okay, let's really unpack that analogy. The brain is a receiver.
Yeah.
Because this is the absolute core concept of noetics, isn't it?
It is. Think of a television set. You're sitting in your living room watching a show. Let's say you're watching the evening news. If I come over with a baseball bat and I smash your TV into a million pieces, the picture disappears, the sound stops, the news anchor is gone.
Right. My TV is dead. I'm very upset.
And this is the crucial key here. Did I destroy the news anchor? Did I destroy the broadcast signal?
No. The signal is still in the air. The broadcast is still happening.
Exactly. I just broke the box that was tuning into it.
Wow.
Katherine is suggesting that human consciousness, your soul, your mind, yourself, is the signal. It exists entirely outside of you. It's a field, just like gravity or electromagnetism.
And your brain is just the biological antenna tuning into that specific frequency.
Yes.
That is wild. Because it directly implies that if the body dies, if the TV breaks, the signal is still there. It's basically a scientific argument for the immortality of the soul.
Precisely. You can easily see why this would be so controversial to a room full of materialist scientists. She is taking theology and trying to prove it with physics.
She is saying that we are not our bodies. We are the signal passing through the body.
Nope.
But she doesn't just leave it as a nice philosophical thought. She's a scientist. She brings receipts.
Oh, she brings the data.
First, she actually uses a visual trick to prove that our brains are constantly filling in gaps. The Herman grid.
Yes, the Herman grid. That's a great warm-up for the audience.
If you haven't seen it, it's this classic optical illusion, a grid of black squares separated by white lines. And when you look at it, your brain literally makes you see gray dots at the intersections of the white lines.
But the dots aren't there.
They aren't there. Your brain is predicting reality and filling in the blind spots. And she uses this to show how flawed human perception is. But then she gets to the real heavy hitter.
The precognition experiment.
I have to say, this part of the source material, I read it, then I reread it, then I literally put the text down and just stared at the wall for a minute.
This was the major aha moment for a lot of people reading this. And it's so important to note, this isn't just fiction Dan Brown pulled out of thin air. This is based on real-world research.
From places like the Peer Lab at Princeton. Right.
Yeah.
And the Institute of Noetic Sciences.
Exactly. Real institutions.
So walk us through this experiment. How do you actually prove that the mind knows the future?
Okay, so you take a subject, just a regular person, and you hook them up to an EEG machine. You are monitoring their brain waves in real time.
Yeah.
You sit them in a comfortable chair in front of a computer screen.
So far, very standard lab stuff.
Right. Now, the computer is programmed to flash a series of images, but it's not a preset slideshow. It uses a true random number generator.
That feels important.
It is the most important part. The computer is deciding in the exact millisecond what to show next based on electronic noise. It is pure chaos.
So there's absolutely no pattern for the subject to learn.
None. Now, the images they use fall into two distinct categories. Some are calm, a flower, a landscape, a cute puppy, things that keep your heart rate down.
Nice, relaxing things.
And some are emotional or high stress, violence, surgery, erotic imagery, extreme danger, images that immediately trigger a visceral fight or flight response in the human nervous system.
Standard evolutionary stuff. You see a snake, you jump back.
Right. In a normal materialist timeline of cause and effect, here's what happens. The eye sees the scary image. The signal travels to the visual cortex. The brain processes danger. The amygdala fires. And you get a massive spike in brain activity on the monitor.
Stimulus, then response.
Cause, then effect. Always in that order.
Right.
But when the researchers looked at the data on the timeline, they found something scientifically impossible. The subject's brainwaves were spiking before the image even appeared on the screen.
Before.
Hundreds of milliseconds before. The brain was reacting to the trauma before the eyes had even seen it. The spike was happening in the pre-stimulus window.
It's spooky. It's like the body has a physical delay, but the mind is already there. It's bracing for impact before the impact even happens.
But here is the real kicker. This is the detail that completely shatters the materialist model.
Okay, Katherine explains that because the computer uses a true random number generator, the decision of which image to show the puppy or the car crash is made only nanoseconds before it appears.
Wait, stop. I really want to make sure I understand this. The computer hasn't decided yet.
Correct. The computer is still shuffling the deck, so to speak. It hasn't picked the card.
But the human brain already knows if the card is going to be a flower or a car crash.
Yes.
The brain knew what the computer was going to do before the computer even knew what it was going to do.
That is the inescapable implication of the data. It suggests that consciousness is not bound by linear time at all.
That is the definition of mind-blowing.
Katherine's overarching argument here is that the mind doesn't just predict reality, it actually helps create reality. She suggests that the observer's expectation might actually be influencing the machine's random choice backward in time.
Creating reality. That is the phrase that really launches the whole book.
Yeah.
Because if our thoughts can influence the physical world, even just a random number generator inside a computer that is basically a superpower, and it connects perfectly to the next major segment of the story. If the mind creates reality, what happens when we dream?
Right.
What happens when we have a vivid nightmare? Does that nightmare just stay inside our head? Or does it start to leak out into the physical world?
That is a terrifying thought. But before we get to the plot implications of that, we have to talk about Langdon.
Oh, yes.
Because while Katherine is up there handling the future of science, Langdon is firmly handling the past. He's the history guy. And he drops an absolute bombshell about the Statue of Liberty.
He really does. And this is so classic Dan Brown, taking something you see every single day and just completely flipping it on its head.
Katherine pulls Langdon onto the stage during her lecture. She really puts him on the spot.
She does. She asks him to identify the most common religious symbol in human history.
And everyone in the audience, and probably everyone listening to us right now, automatically guesses the cross.
Which is a totally reasonable guess. But Langdon says no, it's not the cross. It's the halo.
The shiny ring over the head.
It's completely universal. You see the sun disk over Ra in ancient Egypt. You see the nimbus over Buddha in Asia. You see the golden plate behind the heads of Christian saints. It is a symbol that transcends every culture.
And what does it actually represent?
It represents enlightened consciousness, the glowing mind, the mind that is tuned into the signal perfectly.
And then he pivots to the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
Now, I've been to New York. I've seen Lady Liberty 1,000 times in person and in movies.
Right.
I was just assumed she was wearing, I don't know, a tiara, a stylish hat.
Langdon corrects that assumption immediately. He says, look at the spikes on her head. It is not a royal crown. It is a radiant crown.
A radiant crown.
Those spikes represent rays of light exploding outward from her mind.
She is literally radiating consciousness.
Exactly. Langdon explains that the sculptor, Bartholdi, wasn't just making a nice statue of freedom. He was directly channeling the ancient iconography of Helios, the sun god. The Statue of Liberty is arguably the largest pagan idol on Earth, and she is a massive monument to divine consciousness. She is a giant copper symbol of the exact thing Katherine is studying in her lab.
Such a cool narrative connection. Yeah, the scientist saying, consciousness is the key to the universe. And the historian saying, yeah, we've been worshiping this concept for 5,000 years. We just completely forgot what the symbols meant.
It sets the thematic stage perfectly. It beautifully unifies the science and the history.
But of course, this is a thriller. So we can't just have nice lectures and cool statue trivia for 60 chapters. We need a villain. We need a physical threat.
Enter the Golem.
This is where we shift drastically from science to pure Gothic horror.
We really do.
But we need to explain the legend first. Because Golem isn't just a cool code name like Agent 99. It's a very specific thing in Prague history. It's deep in the DNA of the city itself.
It is. The legend of the Golem dates back to the 16th century, and it centers on a real historical figure, Rabbi Judah Loew. He was a mystic, a scholar, a very prominent leader of the Jewish community in Prague.
And this was a uniquely bad time to be Jewish in Europe.
It was horrific. The ghetto was facing severe persecution, pogroms, violence. They were essentially defenseless against the mobs.
Right.
So the story goes that the rabbi went down to the banks of the river Vltava late at night. He gathered the river clay, the actual mud of the city itself, and he sculpted a massive, hulking man, a brute force protector.
A literal clay bodyguard.
Exactly. But it was just a statue as lifeless mud. To animate it, he used Kabbalah. He used the ancient magic of language. He wrote the Hebrew word emet on its forehead.
Emet.
Aleph, mem, tav. It means truth.
Truth.
Yeah.
And the concept of truth brings it to life. That is such a powerful idea in itself.
It wakes up, it patrols the ghetto, it violently defends the people. But as these stories almost always go, think Frankenstein, think 2001. A space odyssey, the creation eventually becomes dangerous.
It doesn't have a soul.
Right. It has no moral compass. It just has programming. It starts to become violent, uncontrollable. The rabbi realizes he has to destroy it before it destroys them.
But you can't really kill something that isn't actually alive.
So he reverses the linguistic spell. He approaches the golem, and he erases the first letter on its forehead, the aleph. That leaves just the letters mem and tav. Emne.
Emet means
Death.
death.
That is so poetic. You take away the truth, and you instantly get death.
It really is. And our modern villain, the primary antagonist of The Secret of Secrets, completely embodies this legend. He's a massive man. We actually don't know his real name yet at this point in the story.
Just know him as the Golem.
And he really, really leans into the bit.
He does. He wears a mask made of dried, cracked river clay. He covers his own skin in clay. He wears these heavy lead-lined boots.
Why the boot?
Well, he feels that he is a purely spiritual being, and without the heavy boots, he might literally float away. He needs to be physically tethered to the earth.
It speaks to a very deep psychosis. Absolutely. He believes he is a holy instrument, a protector of her, presumably Katherine, though in a very twisted, stalkerish kind of way.
He's terrifying. The source material describes him in his apartment in Prague. It's painted entirely black. He uses only black lights. And he engages in this extreme ritual to access what he calls the ether.
The ether is his term for that field of consciousness Katherine talks about, right?
But where Katherine uses an MRI machine and rigorous science, the Golem uses pure pain. He uses extreme sensory deprivation.
Describe the ritual, because it's disturbing, but it tells us so much about who he is.
He strips down. He inserts a Chengbao baby, which is a specific type of silicone ball gag, to completely silence himself. He lies in total pitch darkness. He creates a state of such extreme isolation that his brain begins to violently hallucinate. He dissociates from reality.
It's a dark mirror of Katherine's science. She tunes into the signal for knowledge and progress. He tunes in for violence and control. He believes he's literally receiving orders from the spiritual realm.
And we know he is highly effective. He has already gotten to one of the characters, Brigitte Gessner.
She was a colleague of Katherine's.
She was. He tortured her. He killed her. He forcibly extracted secrets about Katherine's work.
So the stakes are literally life and death right from the jump. And this leads us to the exact moment where the plot really ignites.
Yeah.
This is where the science of creating reality stops being a fun academic theory and starts getting very, very personal.
The nightmare.
Yes.
Yeah.
Katherine and Langdon are back at the Four Seasons Hotel. It's the middle of the night. Katherine suddenly wakes up screaming. She has just had a profoundly vivid, lucid nightmare.
She describes it to Langdon vividly, and remember, she is a trained scientific observer. She sees a woman standing right at the foot of her bed.
A woman in a black costume.
A woman wearing a black radiant crown, spikes coming right out of her head, like a dark, inverted version of the Statue of Liberty.
And she is holding a silver spear.
Yes. And most disturbingly, Katherine says the woman smelled intensely of death, decay, and sulfur.
And then in the dream, the entire hotel explodes. It's a very clear premonition of death. Langdon, of course, being the good rational skeptic, immediately comforts her.
He says, Katherine, you're stressed. You drank absinthe earlier, the Green Fairy.
Right, you're just tripping. Go back to sleep.
Which is what any rational person would do in that situation. Dreams are just dreams, right? Random neurons firing in the dark.
Until the morning.
This scene genuinely gave me chills. It's 6:50 a.m. Langdon is out jogging across the famous Charles Bridge. It's completely empty, misty, beautiful. And then he sees her.
He sees a woman walking straight toward him out of the thick fog.
She is wearing a black dress. She is wearing a black spiked tiara. She is holding a long silver spear.
Now, if I'm Langdon, I'm desperately thinking, okay, it's a cosplayer. It's a weird Prague street performer. It's just a bizarre coincidence.
He tries to think that. He desperately tries to cling to logic. But then she passes right by him, and the smell hits him.
The smell of sulfur and rot.
That is the absolute breaking point. Imagine being Robert Langdon in that exact moment. You are a man of logic. You are a tenured Harvard professor. You absolutely do not believe in ghosts or psychics.
Never.
But you are seeing, smelling, and hearing the exact specific thing your partner dreamed about just hours ago. A dream you didn't even have. You were just told about it.
The statistical probability of that happening is 0.
It is literally impossible.
Yeah.
And because it is impossible, his entire worldview just shatters. His amygdala completely hijacks his brain. He goes into pure primal panic mode. He assumes if the woman is real, the rest of the dream must be real too.
The explosion.
He sprints back to the hotel. He bursts into the lobby. He yanks the fire alarm. He screams at the manager to evacuate the building. He runs up to the room to find Katherine to save her, but she's already gone. And then the church bells start tolling.
7 a.m. The exact time of the explosion in Katherine's dream.
Yeah. He thinks he's out of time. He thinks the bomb is detonating right now. He's trapped in the room. The door is locked. He can't get out into the hallway. So he does the only thing he can think of.
He jumps out the window.
Straight into the Vltava River in February.
We call this the defenestration.
Which is such a great historical nod by Dan Brown. We have to explain this term.
Please do.
Defenestration literally comes from the Latin de, meaning out of, and fenestra, meaning window. It literally means the act of throwing someone out of a window.
And Prague is basically the world capital of defenestration.
It really is. The first defenestration happened in 1419. The second defenestration, the really famous one, happened in 1618 at Prague Castle. Protestant rebels threw 3 Catholic regents completely out of a high window.
And that actually started the 30 Years' War.
It did. So Langdon is unknowingly participating in a very violent, very local tradition here.
Except he threw himself out.
Yes, it was a self-defenestration.
So he hits the freezing water, he nearly drowns, he drags himself onto the dock, violently shivering, essentially freezing to death. He turns around to look at the hotel, waiting for the blast, and
nothing.
No boom.
The hotel is completely fine, the birds are singing, the wealthy guests are evacuating out front because of the fire alarm, looking incredibly annoyed in their bathrobes.
Talk about a walk of shame.
Oh.
Or a swim of shame. He's standing there shivering in a towel. The hotel manager is absolutely furious with him, and he looks like a complete lunatic who just pulled a fire alarm because he saw a scary lady on a bridge.
But this is exactly where the twist comes in. Just as he's standing there trying to dry off, he is detained by authorities. Enter Captain Janacek.
This guy. He's cynical, he smokes constantly, he looks incredibly disheveled, but he's sharp. He detains Langdon and starts aggressively interrogating him.
Right.
And Langdon is thinking, okay, I look like an idiot. I had a severe panic attack. I'll pay the fine. But Janacek isn't arresting him for a false alarm.
No, Janacek reveals that there actually was a bomb.
This is a huge aha moment.
The police found a massive bomb in the hotel basement earlier that morning. They defused it quietly to avoid a citywide panic. But here's the specific detail that completely condemns Langdon. The bomb was set to detonate at exactly 7 a.m.
The exact time Langdon jumped out the window.
So from Janacek's purely materialist perspective, this isn't a psychic event. This is a criminal conspiracy. How could Langdon possibly know the exact time of the explosion unless he was directly involved in planting it?
Janacek thinks Langdon is a terrorist, or, even worse, a publicity seeker. He accuses them of planting the bomb just to create a miracle.
Think about it from a cop's point of view. Katherine is writing a book about how the mind knows the future. What better marketing stunt than to miraculously predict a terrorist attack?
Buy my book, It Saved the Four Seasons.
It's a deeply cynical theory, but you can totally see why the detective thinks it.
It creates this fantastic narrative tension. Langdon claims precognitive dream, which sounds completely insane in a police interrogation room. Jancic claims domestic terrorism for PR, which sounds very plausible.
Yeah.
It is the central theme of the book Materialism versus Mysticism playing out as a tense legal drama.
Exactly. The reader obviously knows Langdon is innocent, but all the physical evidence makes him look incredibly guilty.
But while Langdon is shivering in a towel trying to explain telepathy to a Czech spy, the scope of the story suddenly zooms way out. This isn't just about a hotel in Prague anymore. We suddenly cut to New York City.
Yes, we meet Jonas Falkman. He is Catherine's editor. He is sitting at the Penguin Random House headquarters in Manhattan. He's about to finally read Catherine's manuscript, the manuscript that supposedly proves all this noetic science we've been talking about.
And he runs into a very serious tech problem. He tries to log into the secure virtual workspace, the SVW. This is military-grade encryption. It's where publishers keep the books that are way too valuable to lose. Partition not found.
The file's just gone.
It's not just a server glitch. It's a targeted purge. The manuscript has been completely wiped from the local server. It's been wiped from the local backups. It's even been wiped from the remote mirrored servers in Maryland.
Someone went to incredible, highly sophisticated lengths to make sure this book never sees the light of day. Why? What is actually in that book?
That is the defining question.
Yeah.
The implication is that the knowledge itself is dangerous. It connects back to that classic theme of the danger of knowledge. Throughout history, people burn books they fear.
This is a modern digital book burning.
Exactly. And it quickly gets physical. Falkman realizes he actually has a physical printout, thank God for old school editors who still like to read on paper.
Right.
He puts it in his bag. He tries to sneak out to a FedEx office down the street to make a physical copy. And he gets bagged.
Yeah.
Kidnapped right off the street in broad daylight in Manhattan.
At the exact same time, we cut to London. We meet a man named Finch and a shadowy, powerful organization simply called Q.
Not the Q from James Bond.
No, but very similar vibes. High-tech, unlimited budget, highly morally ambiguous. Finch looks at a screen and gives the order, execute now.
So we have a massive, coordinated global attack. The bomb in Prague, the kidnapping in New York, the deletion of the data in Maryland. This is a synchronized cleanup operation. They are trying to entirely erase Katherine Solomon and all of her work.
And Finch explicitly mentions a project called Threshold. This seems to be the absolute center of the conspiracy.
Threshold. It's a very evocative name. It implies a crossing over, the point of no return.
And here is a brilliant little linguistic nugget that Dan Brown tucked in there. Do you know what the word Prague actually means in the old Slavic language? Praha.
I have absolutely no idea.
Praha literally means threshold.
Oh, come on. That is brilliant. So the city itself is the code.
The city is the threshold between the East and West, between the magical and the real. And now all these separate threads, the Golem, the police, the global conspiracy, they all converge on one specific location in the city. Crucifix Bastion.
This is where the action really ramps up. Katherine has gone to meet Brigitte Gessner at her lab. The lab is built inside this renovated medieval fortress sitting on a ridge overlooking the city. Langdon and Captain Janicek rush there to find her.
But the Golem has obviously been there first. We know from the Golem's earlier perspective that he has already tortured Gessner. He killed her. He stole her RFID key card. He's looking for access to Threshold, which turns out to be a massive facility hidden directly under Prague.
An underground high-tech lab beneath an ancient city. That is peak Dan Brown right there. I love it.
It really is. Now, the Golem needs two specific things to get in. He has the key card, but he needs a second item, a physical item located inside Gessner's office at the Bastion.
So when Langdon and Janicek finally arrive at the Bastion, the vibe is just wrong. The door is locked. No one answers. Janicek, being the subtle, delicate guy he is, just has his lieutenant shoot out the glass door.
They violently breach the lab. They find the office completely empty. Gessner is missing. Katherine is missing. But Langdon notices something. The art.
The art. This is exactly where being a symbologist finally pays off in a tactical situation. He sees a massive wall sculpture, a Paul Evans piece.
Describe it for us.
So Paul Evans was a real artist known for brutalist furniture and art. Heavy metals, welded steel, really jagged edges. The piece looks like a fortress wall itself. Langdon sees this massive metal grid sculpture just leaning against the drywall.
And Langdon notices that key detail. It's leaning. It's not mounted.
Which is incredibly weird for a piece of art worth $250,000.
Yeah.
You don't just lean it against a drywall like a cheap poster in a college dorm room.
No, Langdon realizes it's not just art. It's a heavy door. or a hiding spot.
And this is the major cliffhanger of this entire section. Langdon is sitting in the waiting room under armed guard by Janetchik's Lieutenant Pavel.
Right.
Pavel looks away for maybe 2 seconds to check a dating app, which, by the way, is a hilarious touch of modern realism in the middle of a high-stakes thriller.
The app is called Dream Zone, right?
Yes, Dream Zone.
Yeah.
So he checks his phone, and when he looks back up, Langdon is completely gone.
Vanished from a sealed room.
He went into the art, didn't he?
It's the only logical explanation. He crossed the threshold, quite literally.
So let's pull back for a second and look at the big picture here. We've unpacked the plot, but what are the really big themes bubbling right under the surface?
Yeah.
Because this story clearly isn't just about escaping a clay monster. It's about how we view the world itself.
The central tension is definitely materialism versus mysticism. You have Janetchik strongly representing the hard, cold facts. If a bomb goes off at 7 Har and you knew about it beforehand, you are a terrorist. That is simple cause and effect. That is materialism.
And then you have Langdon and Katherine representing the mystical or the noetic side. They're essentially saying, I knew about the bomb because consciousness is not bound by linear time.
Exactly. And the narrative is forcing these two opposing worldviews to fight it out. The antagonist, the Golem, is actually a violent, extreme version of the mystical side. He's so detached from physical reality, he thinks he's an actual clay monster.
And the conspiracy Finch and Q over in London, they seem to be the extreme version of materialist control, trying to suppress this new knowledge at all costs.
It's interesting that the bad guys are trying to completely destroy the book. It really drives home the idea that ideas are far more dangerous than weapons.
The danger of knowledge.
It's a very Gnostic idea, that there are deep secrets the world just isn't ready for yet. If Katherine successfully proves that we create reality with our own minds, think about the sheer chaos that could cause if everyone realized they had godlike power.
It would be complete anarchy.
Right.
Or a utopia, I guess, depending on how optimistic you are about human nature. But if I can create reality and you can create reality, and we fundamentally disagree on what reality should be, who wins?
That is the core conflict. And that's the massive question the book seems to be asking. Are we ready for this shift? Katherine obviously thinks yes. The conspiracy very violently thinks no.
I also really want to give a shout out to Prague as a character.
Oh, absolutely.
The way the mist is described, the ancient statues, the deep history of alchemy, it makes the impossible seem entirely plausible. If you told me a clay monster was walking around Times Square, I'd say no way. But in the winding, dark alleys of Prague, in the shadow of the castle,
I buy it.
I absolutely believe it.
It creates a perfect liminal space, a place where the veil between worlds is incredibly thin. That's exactly why the story works so well.
So, where does this leave us at the end of chapter 22? We have Langdon missing, presumably inside a secret tunnel behind a giant piece of brutalist art.
We have Katherine missing, highly likely captured by the Golem, or worse.
We have a groundbreaking manuscript that has been purged from digital existence, except for one single paper copy stuffed in a bag in a van somewhere in New York.
And we have a countdown to, well, something massive involving Threshold.
And we still don't even know the full extent of the science. We've only just scratched the surface with the precognition experiment.
It's a heck of a setup for the rest of the book.
It really is. I want to leave you, the listener, with one final thought to mull over before we wrap up today. We talked heavily about the brain as a receiver. We talked about time being nonlinear.
Right.
If the brain actually spikes before the image is chosen by the computer, if Langdon sees the woman on the bridge before the bomb ever goes off, it raises a truly terrifying question about free will.
Go on.
If the future already exists out there for us to essentially remember it, are we actually making any choices at all? If the brain reacts to the car crash before the computer even picks the car crash, was the car crash just completely inevitable?
It really suggests that the script is already written.
Exactly.
Right.
Are we writing our own story, or are we just reading the pages as we turn them? Are we actively creating our future, or are we just catching up to it?
That is the ultimate mind-bending question of noetics, and I have a strong feeling the answer lies somewhere down in that underground lab, just waiting for Langdon to find it.
I think you're absolutely right. This has been a truly fascinating deep dive. I'm honestly ready to go buy a ticket to Prague right now, although maybe I'll stay on the first floor of the hotel. No high windows for me.
Probably safer that way.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the secret of secrets. Stay curious, keep asking those big questions, and we will see you on the next deep dive.
Goodbye, everyone.